It's Kimberly here. I'm going to answer a question by Joseph DeMassa. Thank you for listening to my podcast. I really appreciate that. Um, as to your question about what to feed your English Bulldog, there's really no specific diet just for English Bulldogs. Um, if your dog has an allergy or food intolerance, you need to check the label of whatever dog food you're using, and if you know specifically what the allergy is or food intolerance, then try to find a dog food that doesn't have that item, that ingredient. And if you're not sure if your dog is having allergic reactions, if you go to the vet and have an allergy test done, you can specifically figure that out. But a lot of dogs are just prone to different allergies just like people. Some dogs have most dogs have a milk intolerance. And that's pretty common. I mean, just about every dog has that. They really can't break down the proteins in the milk or something like that. And a lot of dogs may have a chicken allergy or pork allergy. Some dogs can't eat grains or eggs, soy. A lot of dogs should not eat sugar. I don't ever feed my dog sugar. And if you are, it's probably not healthy to do that. There's other treats you can give your dog that are, is sugar-free, because that's also can make them prone to gaining weight, and it's kind of an unhealthy thing. I know we want to treat our dogs, but try to give them a treat that is specifically made for dogs. It's healthier for them, and it also will prevent tooth decay. That's another thing when you're feeding your dog. Always check their teeth and their gums. I had a very old dog one time, and I wasn't aware, it didn't dawn on me to check their teeth. And I never had dogs that had any kind of tooth problems for decades. And then I had an elderly dog that it wasn't eating right, and come to find out she had tooth decay, and the vet had to remove several teeth. So if your dog is not eating, or it acts like it's kind of mouthing the food but it spits it out, or it may be vomiting, check their teeth, make sure they don't have an infected tooth or gum disease or something to that effect, causing them not to be able to eat, properly. And some people are feeding their dogs a raw diet, which if you can afford that, if you have the ability to prepare it, because it has to be prepared, fresh. Got to have the ingredients on hand, make sure they don't spoil, keep them refrigerated. And it's kind of a preference of what you want to feed your dog. If you want to feed them canned dog food, dry dog food, raw dog food, or there's also refrigerated brands that are they're kind of like canned dog food, but they're fresh and you refrigerate them. It kind of depends on how you want to tailor their feeding. Are you going to leave food out for them throughout the day, or are you able to be there to feed them and make fresh food, or feed them the refrigerated food? But as far as an English Bulldog, some people do the 1 day feeding, which I really don't like that, because it does cause a lot of bloat in dogs. It can cause the torsion and intestinal problems, because a lot of times a dog cannot sit and eat in one sitting all the dog food that it would require for the nutrition for that day. It'd be like stuffing yourself on one meal for the entire day. And a lot of dogs may not eat enough, or they may not be able to digest it. Their stomach may be full and they just can't digest it, and it can cause constipation, bloat, all kinds of intestinal issues. So breaking their meal up into 2 or 3 meals a day is really good, especially for English Bulldogs. I will say that I've owned 2 English Bulldogs, and definitely they have a tendency to have a lot of gas. These dogs make phenomenal amounts of gas. If you own one, then you know what I'm talking about. So definitely break up their meals into 2 to 3 even 4 meals a day, depending on their activity level, and making sure that their body can absorb the nutrients. The smaller meal that they have, the more chance they have to absorb all the nutrients without overstuffing themselves and their body not being able to process all the nutrients that a lot of it, they may not eat enough, or their body may not process it properly if it's bloated and having intestinal issues. And there's different ingredients. Some people feed their dogs a grain-free diet, or they look for ingredients, no eggs or no chicken, or specifically what they think their dog is allergic to. There's all kinds of brands out there with so many specialty made dog foods that don't contain this or have this added into it or for a specific reason. And if you like I say, if you know the allergy, then make sure read the ingredient and make sure you get the right one. There's different brands, from the low end brands to the high dollar brands like Royal Canin and Hill Sciences and Blue Buffalo. There's so many. Not just those. I'm not particularly picking those out. That's just for example. These brands, that they have a lot of different specialty type of foods. And with the grain-free diet, a lot of people don't feed their dog grain-free grains because of allergies. Dogs sometimes can have a high allergic reaction to grains, and a lot of people don't feed their dog grains. But the FDA put out a warning that grain-free dog may have a link to canine heart disease and dilated cardiomyopathy, which is weakening of the heart muscle and causes the heart not to pump enough blood, which can result in congestive heart failure. But the way that medical, when they come up with something like this, a study like this, it's done on percentages. What they do is they study a whole group of people or dogs or whatever the subject is, and they tally up how many ate this, how many ate that, or how many omitted that, and they do it by percentages. So this is not like an exact science. It's just a percentage type of study, and that's typically how they do just about every study, unless they have very specific medical people with certain or dogs with certain specific known medical issues that they can really use as a exact example. But when they're doing something like this, I think they looked at English Bulldogs that had a grain allergy, how many percent couldn't eat the legumes or the potatoes or the grains, or specifically how that's done. So that's how those kind of studies, when you see those studies that says that some particular thing is linked to a certain disease or something, it's usually done by percentage of studying subjects over a period of months or years. And they come up with that. They take out certain variables or either add certain variables. So that's how they come up with that. So it's not completely exact. And one of the things that if you're not going to feed your dog needs proteins and amino acids, but amino acids can be derived from all kinds of sources of protein: red meat, chicken, eggs, even milk, and you can also get them in a lot of plants, potatoes, legumes, grains. Yet they need these amino acids, but they could be allergic to the food that is giving them the amino acids, because your dog needs, protein for fuel, to be healthy and active. So it depends on pretty much what you know about your dog, what your vet can tell you about your dog. if your dog is having digestion problems, if they're throwing up, if they're lethargic, or if they're skin allergies also. English Bulldogs do have a lot of skin allergies. So if your dog is having a lot of issues with licking their paws, or you have to check their rear ends, because English Bulldogs cannot clean their rear ends. You need to check them every day, every other day, make sure they're cleaned up, and look and see if there's a rash or dermatitis. My English Bulldogs, they were really, really healthy, except they did have a lot of dandruff. They did have issues with dry skin, but I live in West Texas where it's extremely dry here. So you just kind of have to watch your dog and look at the symptoms. If you notice something and you can't diagnose it, specifically yourself on your own knowledge, then take them to a vet. Maybe if they're having an allergic reaction or something, if they're puffing up, then that's usually a sign of allergic reaction. That's, something. My dog, I have a pit bull that is allergic to something. We never really found out what it was. But I think about 2 times he had like a life-threatening allergic reaction where he almost couldn't breathe. His face swelled up the size of a basketball. He barely could see. It was the most bizarre looking thing. His face, a dog's face has contours. It swelled up so much, his face was round. And that was from allergic reaction, and we never really found out what it was. And I had fed him a certain type of dog food, and only for a while, but there was also other factors that he could have come in contact with, some other things we thought. But and this was very expensive food. I was buying it for him to make sure he was healthy, So I switched him back to the cheap, low-end brand that I had bought, and he did fine on that. So I kept him on that food. I didn't put him on any kind of expensive, I'm afraid to switch it. I'm afraid. I've kept him on this one food ever since then, and he's never had a reaction after that. So, you kind of just have to watch for things, whatever you see, or you can tell, what's going on with your dog. And also the bowl, when you're feeding a dog, sometimes people use those bowls that have like a pattern in it to keep them from gobbling it down. If that works well with your dog, that's fine. But English Bulldogs, they usually can't use those bowls because they have because of the way their face is made, and their face is wide and flat, so they have difficulty trying to grab the food, and they'll probably try to tip it over, and it can cause a little bit of anxiety. Some people have used those bowls, and it's caused anxiety in their dogs because the dog can't get to the food, which you don't want your dog to become upset and start having anxiety issues, because that can also cause physical issues. So if you are using a bowl like that, watch how he reacts to the bowl, he or she reacts to the bowl. If they are okay with it, then that's fine, because a lot of dogs do eat too fast and they get bloated. So if you're using it for that reason, that's fine. If it works, that's great. But just watch how your dog reacts to it and what they're doing. If they can't get the food out, Also, there's an issue with breaking the teeth on those bowls, or I want to say there was something else I can't remember now. But if you are giving them a whole bowl of water and they tend to gulp it down really fast and drink the whole bowl at once, kind of watch how they drink the water and the food together. Make sure that they're not getting bloat, because English Bulldogs can get bloated, fairly easy. And just making sure, just watching. A lot of it has to do with you watching the dog, just looking at the dog while it's eating, making sure they're not having reactions or something like that. And also, if you do buy a certain type of dog food, you can look for not just the ingredients, but dog food that is made to support digestive issues or bone and health, joint, especially English Bulldogs. They have, a lot of weight on their joints, and they tend to have a lot of arthritic issues as they get older. You might want to look for a food that has a certain type of ingredient or something for bone and joint health, and just pretty much watching your dog, making sure you pay attention to the reaction to the food, and looking at their body, making sure they don't have a lot of rashes, or making sure they're not puffing up. If you see that they have noticeable puffiness after eating a certain type of food, they may be allergic to peanuts. They could be allergic to grains or chicken. A lot of dogs do have a chicken allergy. That's something I found out. I wasn't really aware of that. So, like I say, just watch your dog and watch what they eat and watch the reaction to it. Well, thank you so much for bringing that question up, and I think I'll make another podcast more in depth about this, kind of more, I'll just do a lot of research about it and come up with another podcast. It's a really great idea. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Joseph Damaso. I hope I'm not butchering your name, Damaso. Thank you. Thank you all. I want to thank all my new subscribers. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good night.